Hi, guys. So we continue. We are in Mark chapter 14. It was 2 days before the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The chief priests and the scribes were looking for a way to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him, for they said, "Not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people." So let's have a look at this. What do we mean by Passover? What is this Passover thing? Well, it's a huge holiday that's celebrated by the Jewish people. They are celebrating the time when the angel of death passed over their homes during the 10th plague of their time in Egypt, just before the Exodus. And so this is an enormous, important holiday and holy day, if you will. And so that's why the priests and scribes were not willing to cause a disturbance at this point. Jesus was very popular with the common people, even if the scribes and priests weren't overly keen on him. And so they didn't want to have the common people go against them for disrupting this festival time. So let's continue. While he was at Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment of spikenard, and she broke open the jar and poured the ointment on his head. But some were there who said to one another in anger, "Why was the ointment wasted in this way? For this ointment could have been used and sold for more than 300 denarii, and the money being given to the poor." And they scolded her. But Jesus said, "Let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has performed a good service for me. For you will always have the poor with you, and you should show kindness to them whenever you wish, but you will not always have me. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for its burial. Truly I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." So, let's have a look at the context here. So, an ointment of spikenard. You probably remember at your first Holy Communion or at your confirmation that there was oil placed on your head. They call it chrism oil. Well, actually, that is simply olive oil that has been given spices or fragrances, which is then blessed by the bishop for a specific reason. So, if it was being used for the anointing of the sick, it would be blessed with prayers of healing, for example. And so spikenard is kind of like that. It's a nice, beautiful, fragranced oil used for anointing. Now, this was very expensive oil. It says 300 denarii. Other translations say 300 days' wages. So that's a significantly expensive luxury item. And I can see the disciples' point. They're quite upset. They're saying, "Why would you use something like this in this manner when you could sell it and then use that money to help the poor? Isn't that what we're meant to be about as Christians? Aren't we meant to be people who help the poor and use our money in that direction?" They're not wrong. They're making perfect sense, but they've missed something. Jesus says, "She's done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for its burial." Remember, he's told them 3 times now that he is going to die soon and that he will be buried. So this is very significant for that context. And so I'm just going to give you something that used to bother me, but doesn't bother me nearly as much as it does now, as it did then. So I used to be really bothered when I'd see these beautiful cathedrals, especially in Europe, because that's where I grew up. See all these beautiful cathedrals that were really expensive with all these wonderful, talented artists doing all these great things. And it used to really bother me that the church, especially the Catholic Church, had all this wealth, and I kept thinking, why aren't they using this wealth for the poor? And then I was rereading something not long ago, and when we were going over some of Gospel of Mark, we were talking about the greatest commandment. What is the greatest commandment, and what's the second greatest commandment? Well, I'm hoping some of you already know the answer, and if we're in school, you'd be raising your hand. But the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And then the second greatest is like it, which is love one another as yourself. So, in yes, this oil could have been used for the second style, for loving one another as yourself. That is absolutely wonderful and a good thing to do. However, it can also be used, especially with Jesus being physically present with the disciples. It could also have been used to love the Lord their God with all their heart, with all their mind, with all their soul, with all their strength. And so, yes, this oil could have been used to help the poor, but it also was able to be used for honoring God. And that's what she did, which was a good thing, especially in the context of Jesus dying soon. He even says, Truly I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her. Well, I don't mean to get meta on you here, but what are we doing right now? We're talking about this woman who did this wonderful, kind thing for Jesus. So why is it true that this is going to be told for the whole to the whole world? Because Mark wrote it down. Mark wrote down Jesus' prediction, and by us reading about it and talking about it now, his prediction came true. Well, now we're going to get to the part which is very famous. So let's have a look. Then Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went to the chief priests in order to betray him to them. When they heard it, they were greatly pleased and promised to give him money. So he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. Well, you've probably heard people misquoting somebody who once said that money is the root of all evil. That's not true. That is not the exact quote. The quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil. If you love money more than you love God, more than you love each other, more than you love human dignity, if making sure that your finances are in order is more important than caring for your fellow brothers and sisters, then you're heading in the same direction as Judas, and that's not a good direction to go in. All right. Well, sorry to finish on a heavy note, but please focus on, if you do end up accumulating lots of money, use it for good, or use it to honor God, because those are one and the same. Okay. Bye bye for now.